So hi everyone, welcome back. Today is going to be epic because we're going to do the 2022, in my opinion, recap on the cycling industry, the winners, the losers, the good, the bad and the ugly, and slash, nothing really happened, did it? Peaktalk.com if you want to buy big brake adapters. I've still got a few left from the current batch. The demand has been pretty crazy and I basically can't make them quick enough. I won't get them to you before Christmas because the whole country here is striking. And patreon.com, thanks to all the patrons, set that up this year. It's helping me fund the kind of Aero test and building the test rigs and stuff for the wheel test. That's been really cool. So thanks to you, and I'll mention you again at the end, you guys. It's been really good. Starting off with the first big loser, in my opinion. First of all, should I keep the hat, ditch the hat? It's Christmas, bitches, but it's fucking hot in here. Moving on, first loser of 2022, 105 going to Di2 and the price going through the roof. The price is now £1,000 more than the retail price of the previous group set. Like, how does that even work? I know there's an inflationary gap and everyone's struggling, which is why the country's on strike. But how does that justify that? Gone are the days when we could buy 105 rim brake group set as the kind of jewel of a cheap bike or an eBay frame or a winter bike and build it up into something we really treasured that was going to be reliable, easy to work on, pretty cheap. Whereas now you just can't do that. I mean, look at the prices here. This is Chain Reaction Cycles. Actually, they have a great deal on the old group set. You can see that at the top. But 1,730 quid is the RRP of the new Di2 disc brake group set for 105. 799 of the old disc brake 105 group set. And the RRP of the non-disc brake group set was 599. Like, that was good value. This is amazing value. It's now on discount, 299. I'll put a link in the description. We're still bicycle enthusiasts. We don't want to downgrade. We still want to have 105 on the bike. But who's going to buy an aftermarket group set that's just 105 at £1,730? And actually it's quite a porky, it's quite a heavy group set. I just can't imagine that. Like, when I bought my Di2 group set for my TCR, which is the 11-speed Dura Ace, which I believe is the best group set ever made, I am biased. I got it on a deal, yeah, I got it on a bit of a discount deal, but that was 1,650 odd quid, which is less than the retail price of the 105, the new 105 12-speed group set. Absolutely mental. I don't know how they justify that. So Shimano, I'm going to say 105. You've lost that. Don't know who's going to buy that. It's going to be on OEM bikes, of course, but who's going to buy that aftermarket? No one. But that plays into the hands of the Chinese group set makers, who I think are the winners of 2022. We've seen L2 come out with their Hydro group set. You've got their own brakes on there, their own shifters, proprietary everything. About 300 quid all in, I think I've seen it on AliExpress. Now you can go and check out the full video on the China Cycling channel. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But this is going to happen more and more now. As patents expire, they get better R&D and they start sorting out really their distribution network and brand to brand network as well. Like, they're a force to be reckoned with. We all thought that about, you know, Japanese stuff when that started coming out, when everything was made in Britain. And we thought that about Samsung when everything started to get made in Korea. You know, traditional group set manufacturers are going to need to drop their prices or sort something out pretty sharpish, because it won't be long. I'm not saying now, because at the moment, yeah, we still feel, you buy something like this, you basically feel like you're a beta tester, even though you bought it at full price. That'll be changing very, very rapidly in the next 5 or 10 years, mark my words. Anyway, please like and subscribe if you want me to get one on the channel. Another loser in 2022, Aero bikes with completely pointless features where the marketing just makes me want to vomit. Aero bikes took a long time to be less shit. When they first came out, they had no tire clearance, the seat posts were too stiff, the frames were very, very stiff in plane, so vertically they were very stiff, but they were quite noodly out of plane because the tubes were airfoil shaped, didn't have much second moment of area. Now, we started to make aero bikes a little bit more comfortable. We had the Scott Foil that won Paris-Roubaix under Matt Hayman, which was like an aero bike, which was one of the most comfortable aero bikes to ride. I know, I rode one. We had the original Aero, not the original Aero, but the one before the current monstrosity. That had a very, very comfy seat post, a very skinny seat post, but had a very aero frame. Now we've given up on all that. We've gone back to the very, very large, deep seat posts, and we've gone back to just putting stupid, pointless features on frames that really don't do anything, that basically is just something for the marketing people to write about. I don't know, did they get bored during lockdown in COVID years? No idea. We've got the gaping hole in the Trek. I mean, it's just the type of people that buy these bikes are interested in technical matters, they're interested in aerodynamics because you force it down their throat so much. So please don't make something so ridiculous and say it's as comfortable, or you know, it can be as comfortable as the last one, because I actually thought the last Madone had quite a neat ISO speed coupler, that L-shaped leaf spring thing. Okay, they may have had some issues with warranty, but I think in the bike industry, it was actually quite a neat innovation, which you don't really see very often. It was a very well packaged, very clever way of putting a leaf spring in a seat post. And I've always said this, why are we always just making the tyre do the suspension on road bikes? You know, you don't see that in any other forms of transport or motorsport, anything, even if it's running on a very smooth, hard surface like motorsport cars, F1, MotoGP, you've got loads of suspension. You need it for traction, handling, wet grip, everything. But on bikes, we're kind of so dumb, we don't understand suspension and suspension losses or, you know, body mass losses, so we just make everything get done by the tyre. So you penalise on rolling resistance and all sorts of other things like grip and handling. I've said this ad infinitum, I'm not going to go over again, but we've basically just had a load more useless features on aero bikes in 2022. I mean, look at this guy here, look at this guy riding this Bianchi with two little plastic vents on the front of it. Like, what the fuck? I mean, you could have just given him a pair of handlebars that weren't 48 centimetres wide, or if you've got a mate with a 3D printer, or an old Coke bottle, plastic Coke bottle, should get him to chop you one up and make some for your bike. Save about 5,000 or 6,000 euros, I imagine. More losers. Now, this is quite negative, isn't it? But we'll get some winners in a minute. I'm saying it, gravel bikes are dead. And this isn't just me hating on gravel bikes. I like off-road riding. You've seen all my mountain bike stuff. I just think the industry has self-assassinated their own genre, which they made up a few years ago. And it's completely crazy, but I'm all for them doing it. I'm just going to sit back and, you know, watch the show, because a couple of years ago, gravel bikes were all the rage. Everyone had to have one. But now it seems the bike industry is making road bikes, all road bikes with massive tyre clearance, and the cycling media is weirdly praising them for giving bikes tyre clearance as if it's some sort of R&D feat, when actually all the engineer is doing is literally leaving a gap on the engineering drawing. Those all road bikes are now encroaching on the gravel bike, and what's doubly fucking fucked up is the gravel bike sector is encroaching on the hardtail mountain bike sector, because they're putting suspension forks on gravel bikes. So they're basically shrinking that sector without anyone doing anything. And that's fine by me, because I particularly don't see the space. I've got pretty much an all-road bike in my TCR. At the moment, I've got tyres that measure 34 millimeters installed on there. I could probably get a 36 measured width in the TCR, and it's not even an all-road bike, it's a race bike. I've got hardtail mountain bike, which I can ride very, very skinny, fast-rolling XC tyres on, and I just don't have that narrow band in the middle. This is the Canyon Ultimate down here, believe it or not, which won the Gravel World Champs under Gianni Vermeersch. The new Canyon Ultimate's got a load of tyre clearance. You know, you've got that, which can win the World Champs of gravel. And then slightly slower, if you're getting really gnarly, you've got an XC mountain bike, which you can do this kind of riding on if you put some heavier tyres on it. I've never seen the niche, to be honest. And just to kind of chart this, to make it a bit simpler, this is what I think the kind of envelope looked like maybe 5 years ago. The orange line is MTB. I don't know why the letters haven't come up. And I thought the gravel envelope was quite small. And now it's gone to even smaller, because the road, all road bikes have encroached on it. Gravel bikes have got suspension forks, and they're kind of like mountain bikes. So in my opinion, the genre is just shrinking down, and I'm all for N+1. Don't get me wrong. I love buying more bikes. Everyone likes buying bikes, but I want to buy a bike that actually has a big enough envelope to use it. Dad has told him, look, son, when you're my age, there won't be any gravel bikes. I know it's very sad, but you can have this nice checkered shirt because I'll put it in my will. Winners! Moving on, positives. Asian B2C and Asian B2B. So we're talking about the young Asian brands like Winspace, Fast Sports, and all these companies that are going direct to consumer, but they're also establishing very strong dealer and distribution networks all over the world. They've got warehouses all over the world, so you don't need to pay import duties. Customer service is getting better. And don't think, you know, I'm just bigging this up and saying that they've just come around in the last few years. Wait, is this going to be left or right if you're looking at it? Guy on the left here was the founder of this, and he's been around for ages. This is the CEO of Giant. I think his name is Mr. Liu. First Asian B2B and B2C dude there was. Back to losers. Sorry, guys. Right, this one's integrated BS and incompetent engineering. Well, this year we had a very big product recall of Specialized, or S-Works SL7 Tarmac, where the fork snapped off when you were riding it. Are we fucking around with fork steerer tubes and headsets, which have zero redundancy, when we can't even align 2 holes in the bottom bracket? We don't have the engineering know-how or the very even fundamental basics of design for manufacture, or QC, to be going around messing with systems with no redundancy. What does that mean? Well, a fork steerer has no redundancy. If it snaps, you are fucked. Why are we messing with these? Because you can't, you don't have the skills to put a few cables inside the frame. That's it. Because it's simply, with the prices you dictate from the manufacturing and the lack of personnel you have in the manufacturing, the lack of QC, The disconnects, the conflict of interest between driving the price down in your factories and expecting quality components, which are kind of over-designed, and maybe even the factory workers themselves don't know how these parts work, that you can't even put a chamfer on a fucking sharp edge on an engineering drawing. You can't align a bottom bracket shell to stop it creaking, so we've gone back to threaded. The incompetence and the arrogance to try these overcomplicated proprietary systems is just ridiculous. And what's worse, the fix. Okay, this is only part of the fix. They gave some extra cock ring to go inside the compression ring. If the steerer still snaps after this recall, how can we get the bloke not to eat shit on the floor and lose his teeth? Let's use the same expansion plug in the steerer tube, but the nut part, so the bit the top cap bolt threads into, we'll just make it slightly longer. So if the part of the fork does shear off, there's still something connected to the bottom part of the fork, which is still connected to the wheel, so you still have some steering. It's just a sticking plaster on a problem, guys. Let's go back to basics. Let's have decent, lightweight, good value road bikes. Fuck the internal cabling. It doesn't really work. It bites the cables anyway. No one's really done it very well. Let's just move on. This still hasn't been fixed either. Go and look on Weight Weenies. Hundreds of Canyon customers still complaining about their seat posts, which knock. They have to take them out every wet ride and grease the seat posts. I don't understand in what world a static part needs greasing. I've never had to service a seat post and grease it. Maybe on a pub bike, on an old steel bike, you don't want it getting stuck in the frame, so you might grease a seat post that goes into a steel frame that you won't take out for maybe 10 years. Again, it just comes back to arrogance. The industrial designer may design it so it looks great, no clearance, no slop, no dirt, no ingress. In the real world, things just don't work like that. Stop using industrial designers for your engineering, hire proper mechanical engineers. They've got proper experience in design for manufacture, and these problems won't happen. Back to some winners, brands, and peak torque testing. This sounds like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but let me just say a quick thanks to all the brands that have either sent me equipment to test for free, and also I'd like to thank a couple of sponsors as well of the channel, like Insta360, Magic Shine Lights. Without these brands sending me this stuff, and you might think, oh, it must be so hard getting so much free stuff to test. It is. It has become quite hard, and it does become very, very time consuming, but I'm extremely grateful not only for you guys watching and the patrons, but for the brands who have decided to jump in, because I know I'm quite harsh, and we've seen that in a couple of the wheel reviews where the brands have been a little bit edgy with what I've been saying. But if it wasn't for these brands sending me this stuff, I wouldn't have invested in the channel, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now about next year and where I want to go with the channel. I've actually, designed and built, machined myself parts of my wheel stiffness jig, and I wouldn't have done that had enough brands not sent me wheels, because now I've got a massive database of wheels. And I'm thanking you for sending me Western brands wheels now, because my viewers have kindly donated and are offering to donate more big brand names, which kind of don't ever get in contact with the channel. Some of them do. So the equipment brands that I'd like to thank are Power2 Max, Aero, and Sugei, power meter brands. Pretty much kind of the pinnacle of bicycle engineering when you consider how technical they are. And an Aero lab who've got in touch to basically facilitate all my aero testing, because Aero lab got in touch and said, we love your wheel reviews. One thing you're really missing, which is still kind of subjective, is aerodynamic data. So why don't you do some real world outboard testing, benchmark wheel test, which I personally believe is the best on YouTube. I wouldn't be getting real world aerodynamic data. Wheels, I'd like to thank Windspace, Fastsports, Ascent, Ican, Elite, and other brands that I've got wheels in that are queued. You know who you are, and I haven't had time to review yet because I can't write reviews without testing. And even like the little brands like these Ride Now TPU inner tubes, they got in touch and said, we know you're getting a lot of wheels, you're doing aero testing, you're getting through a lot of tyres, how about you try our inner tubes? Just little touches like that. It makes everything worthwhile. I'm not taking any payment for this, but it makes everything worthwhile. So they're very, very good value. I'll leave a link down below. Don't get any kickback. I just really, really like the product. And a 29er mountain bike inner tube, 66 grams. Other little things like IG Sport for the bike computer, noticing I was using my Garmin watch to record data on a ride, sent me a head unit. Thanks to all the brands, it really makes things worthwhile. And thank you to you, the viewers, for making it worthwhile. Thanks for all the comments. I love responding to the comments. And thanks to the customers as well on peaktorque.com that have been buying the big brake adapters. The demand for those has been crazy. I just thought of another I'm just staring at this power meter here, just thought of another loser actually. Shimano Dura Ace power meter, still can't make it work, the stages just have. Go and check out Shane. GP Lama's channel, check out his channel. Shimano still haven't made their new power meter work, but stages have come out and made it work. Now, I actually have patents in torque sensing, so I'm shaking my head at Shimano again. How can you not make that work when someone else can? And I can see what's happened in my head. This is where I want to get to, this green dot. And this is a position map I've done of other CMEs, Cycling Media Enterprises. We've got the traditional CMEs down here. I mean, this axis is quite hard to work out, but if you pause it, you can use the shadows to figure out the ratings. It's a 3-axis graph. This is where I want to get to. I think this is the holy grail up here on the top right, and this is where I think I am at the moment. Let me know if you think it's achievable to become fully independent, have full value, the top value, and have a massive reach. I think at the moment, the independent narrative is pretty strong for my channel, and I definitely needed to keep it that way. That is the selling point of the channel. And I think it has good value in terms of engineering and buying decisions and purchasing and stuff, but I need to expand the reach. So do you think this target is achievable? Let me know in the comments down below. Happy Christmas, see you in the next one.